Elon Musk was interviewed by the BBC's James Clayton about hate speech and misinformation on Twitter. But Musk used 3 mind control tactics to reverse the roles and eviscerate this journalist, as you're about to find out. This video is going to be useful for anyone who has trouble saying no, because some people are always trying to take advantage of others, and if you're a especially sensitive person, you could fall for it. But not if you apply what you're about to learn. The one verbal tactic you apply with someone who comes in bad faith to make you look bad. How can you use questions to confuse, disarm, and scare a manipulator? And one interruption pattern that will make toxic personalities discard you as a victim. The tips you're going to get are 100% practical, so by the end of this video, you will be able to apply all of them. Welcome back, my body language buddies. My name is Jesus Enrique Rosas. I'm the body language guy. And the first tactic that Elon uses is asking questions. Let's see if you can spot the 2 rapid fire shots in the following clip.
What hate speech are you talking about? I mean, you use Twitter.
Right.
Do you see a rise in hate speech?
I mean,
But just a personal anecdote, like what do you? I don't.
Personally, for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content, yeah, personally.
The first one is just a rhetorical question. What hate speech are you talking about? But then Elon is specific. Do you see a rise in hate speech? That is an easy yes or no question, and Clayton just stutters. Then Elon tries to make it seem like he is being friendly. Give me a personal anecdote, which should be easy to recall, but this is a trap to see if Clayton has any specific tweet to mention. He just answers, I would see I get more of that kind of content personally. That is a vague statement. In just 2 questions, Elon confirms that this person has nothing. Now, I'm going to give you a tip before you watch the following clip. Just 4 seconds in, Elon will say the words, you see more hate speech personally. Make sure you pay attention to the tone.
But I'm not going to talk to the rest of for the rest of Twitter.
So you see more hate speech personally.
I would say I would see more hateful content in that.
Content you don't like or hateful. What do you mean to describe a hateful thing?
Yeah.
I told you to pay attention to Elon's tone because he was paraphrasing Clayton. This is something you use to let the other person confirm that you have understood them. But way too many times we make the mistake of paraphrasing like a question. You see more hate speech personally? No, your tone should be neutral like Elon did. That is a subconscious message that says that you're in command, even if you're just paraphrasing, which is a critical tip in any conversation. Now, Elon even says, describe a hateful thing. Clayton doesn't have to be specific, just describe it, but he doesn't. He just says, yeah, and looks away. Now here comes the tip to harness the power of questions so you can disarm this kind of attacks. And it's plain dumb. We get questions like, can you give me a personal anecdote about this or describe a hateful thing? It's not only that they are open questions, but they are forcing Clayton to think about his answer. It looks like Elon wants more context about what kind of hate speech are you talking about. But you bet that Elon already knows what hate speech looks like. He's just pretending he doesn't know. Questions that force people to think have an interesting effect if they are about an opinion, such as Clayton's opinion or experience on hate speech. Forcing him to think and elaborate about his own thoughts will make him feel insecure about them. In fact, that's a weapon that can be used against you. The only way to defend yourself is to get used to challenge your own opinions. Ask yourself the questions that others could shoot at you and make sure to think about the answers. Be ruthless with your own mind. Let's talk about body language, and in the next clip, all you have to do is pay attention to Elon's head.
I mean, just content that will solicit a reaction, something that may include something that is slightly racist or slightly sexist, those kinds of things.
So you think if something is slightly sexist, it should be banned?
Yeah, that pause at the end. I told you to pay attention to Elon's head because he is just nodding. What's so special in that? Well, that's an almost universal gesture that means, go on, I want to listen to you, please keep talking. So we know that asking open questions will slowly erode the person's self-confidence. And as you can see, he's trying to explain himself still in vague terms. If you nod, you invite the person to keep talking. If the person keeps talking, there will be a higher and higher probability that they will contradict themselves later on. That's why you don't interrupt them. You make sure they set themselves up. By this point, believe it or not, you have a solid foundation on how to reverse the roles in this kind of situations. Now, in the next clip, only Elon is going to talk, and what he's gonna do with his words is something that you can use to keep your emotions under control in situations like this.
I'm just curious. I'm trying to understand what you mean by hateful content, and I'm asking for specific examples. And you just said that if something is slightly sexist, that's hateful content. Does that mean that it should be banned?
All that he is doing is repeating Clayton's words. This is not paraphrasing, because paraphrasing can be approximate or slightly different. He's summarizing but using word for word. This requires not that much cognitive energy, and it's something that you can do even if you're upset. Just repeat their words. And it's at this moment that they have to compromise and accept that that's what they said. And that's how they will set themselves up for contradictions. Don't believe me? Just watch.
Well, you've asked me whether my feed, whether it's got less or more. I'd say it's got slightly more.
That's why I'm asking for examples. Can you name one example?
I honestly don't use. Honestly, I don't.
You can't name a single example.
I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore.
What? Wait a minute.
Personally, my for you, I would see I get more of that kind of content. Yeah, personally. I'll tell you why. Because I don't actually use that for you feed anymore.
That's what I mean. You let them speak, they will always end up contradicting themselves. And this is especially critical when they talk in vague terms, when they don't want to give you details, even if you just ask them for a general example of what they claim. And it was so fun to watch Elon's reaction, like, are you seriously telling me this nonsense? Each tactic isolated is deceptively simple. Play dumb, ask for more details, let them talk. But as a system, they let you remain in control of your emotions, while they crumble on their seats. Now, most of the time when you have cornered someone like this, maybe it's not the best idea to call them out directly. Hey, what you're saying is making zero sense. But Elon did not pull any punches here, and he tells Clayton, you lied.
Then I say so that you don't know what you're talking about.
Really?
Yes, because you can't give me a single example of hateful content, not even one tweet, and yet you claimed that the hateful content was high.
Well,
that's false.
No, what I claimed...
You just lied.
What? No.
Whether if you want to tell someone that they are lying or you want to give them some more rope is completely up to you. But there comes a time when you just have to let the person know that you will not be tolerating further BS. It's interesting that Elon reinforces the "you just lied" sentence by pointing with his finger to really drive it home, and Clayton's body language reveals that he is defensive, hunched and tense, and he's got nowhere to go. Believe it or not, this goes on for a while until Clayton decides to move on due to some time constraints. And the following clip includes a pattern interruption. Let's see if you can spot it.
I can't give you an exact example. Let's move on. We only have a certain amount of time.
Wow.
COVID misinformation. You changed the COVID misinformation.
Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
Yeah, it's lame how Clayton tried to justify his unprofessionalism, but what I wanted you to spot is Elon saying amazing. Watch just that fragment again and notice the timing.
Wow.
COVID misinformation.
Amazing.
Elon interrupts Clayton, but usually interruptions are to counter an argument or deny or argue in some way. But Elon says amazing, like he's happy about this topic. That sparks a huge dissonance in the brain of the interviewer, because it detects an interruption, expects a roadblock, but instead finds a reinforcement. By the way, that kind of pattern interruptions can be useful in psychotherapy, but at the same time, you can use them to mess with people's heads. And speaking of messing with people's heads, you also notice that Elon did this.
You've changed the COVID misinformation.
Has BBC changed its COVID misinformation?
You remember when we were talking about not using question inflection when you want to sound neutral? But this is the opposite. Clayton makes a statement, you've changed the COVID misinformation, and Elon turns it into a question to the BBC. Has the BBC changed its COVID misinformation? This has the same effect when a kid repeats everything you say. Yeah, it's annoying, but this annoyance is much more elegant and difficult to spot. And that brings us to one thing in the following clip.
The BBC does not set the rules on Twitter, so I'm asking you.
No, I'm talking about the BBC's misinformation about COVID.
I'm literally asking you about, you changed the labels, the COVID misinformation labels. There used to be a policy.
Yeah, the pause. Pauses like this can be extremely powerful. You say something and just shut up. You're expecting a reaction from the other person. You're setting them up in a reaction state of stress. Now, if you want an advanced body language tip, we should take a look at Elon's breathing. This is usually a harder signal to spot. It depends on what the person is wearing, the lighting, the seating, and our angle in respect to them. But these circumstances are perfect. And the exact moment in which Clayton decides to move on to the next topic because, time constraints, you can spot that Elon's breathing has become more intense. His shoulders and chest give him away. You can tell that this is an emotional reaction because this was not happening 3 minutes earlier. So he's keeping it cool, but his body language is revealing that he's upset with this guy. He might be even nervous. That's why I tell you we need a system to keep our emotions in check in this kind of situations. It was also a good idea to just let Clayton move on to the next topic. Maybe you will feel tempted to kick a dead horse, but you might end up looking like a bully. So to recap, here's how you confuse and disarm an ill-intentioned toxic personality. If they speak in vague terms, you make sure to ask them questions about their questions. What do they mean? Please give me an example. I want to understand what you require. Nod and play dumb. Make sure to remember their words so you can summarize and repeat so they have to compromise with what they just said. Do not paraphrase, but word for word, so there's no chance they claim that you misinterpreted their words. And finally, the pattern interruptions. As I said, this is a technique that can be used in psychotherapy and at the same time to mess with people's heads. I think it's worthy of its own video, so if this analysis gets to 10,000 likes, I'll be glad to make it for you. My body language buddies, if you found this video useful, make sure you don't miss my upcoming analysis by subscribing and hitting that bell. And don't forget to download my 100 body language tips right in the description of this video. Much love and bliss.